Welcome back to another episode of the Wisemen Say podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jerald Lucas, alongside Derik Abbott. And
What's up?
unfortunately, we're missing one of the three Musketeers and Ty Fisher as he is on assignment with Ohio Dominican University right now. Uh, Derek, what's going on?
Not much. I'm milking a bit of, I wouldn't say a total sunburn, but like pretty close to it. I was down in Florida this weekend, so I am wearing a sweatshirt, even though it's not necessarily like cold per se out, but I need to like, keep my body regulated for another few days so I don't peel like like a snake or something afterwards. I'm usually one of those people though. I get one solid burn in as we get into the warmer months, and then after that, I'm good to go. I don't usually like reburn, so that's what I got going on right now.
Jeez. Well, Derek was well done. Um, no, it was a great weekend to be a Crew fan.
Mm,
Um, but before we get in that, thanks to all the fans out there. Whether you're tuning in on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, Pocket Cast, Overcast, you know, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and you guys have helped us be in the top 100 for a million podcasts. We're sitting at 57 right now. So please, if you go out there, leave us a 5-star review. Um,
like and subscribe, ring the bell, all the things
yep,
that the vloggers always say.
ring that bell on YouTube so
That's
that way
right.
you can be
Push us up
notified
the
of
list.
whenever we go live. But thank you to the fans. Man, like I said, it was a great day. Great weekend to be a Crew fan. As we're gonna jump into it. As the Crew traveled down I-70 to St. Louis City and Energizer Park to take on St. Louis City for the first time in league play since they came into the league. And man, it was a dogfight.
Yeah. I remember last week people were saying that they had a pretty good defense, and for a lot of that game, that was certainly the case. It was not. It was no kind of easy 4-0, 4-1 scenario that maybe we had
Mm-mm.
lightly been predicting by any stretch of the imagination.
I thought it was gonna be 3-0, but hey, it was a 2-1 win. And despite where they stand in the standings, St. Louis City has a pretty good stifling defense.
Hmm.
And that's what sort of scared me after I made my prediction of 3-0. Like, yeah. But St. Louis got on the board early within the 7th minute by a goal by Klaus. Um, that was unfortunate, though.
It, we don't say it often, but it felt like, at least to my eyes, that like Schulte kind of they got the best of him right there. He's a little out of place, and we typically don't say that about him. I mean, that's going to happen eventually. No one's going to be perfect all the time, but in the 7th minute, those are always like backbreakers, typically for like just general vibes of the teams. Um, and we showed our resilience, which I love.
But I mean, other teams might have
Hmm.
faltered and had their head down. But we're talking about Columbus here. The gold
Yeah,
standard in the MLS. Um,
absolutely.
it was a wake up call. It was a slap to the face. It was that they got hit with the first punch, and it just was like, all right, hold on. It stung for a moment. Now you don't
Yeah.
poke the bear. You don't pissed us off. Let's go. And well, I tell you what, it was back and forth, and I did call his goal, and I'm
You
mad I didn't
did.
put it.
Oh man.
Uh,
You were getting really good at this because every week you were either super close by who you call that, like they barely miss or they have a shot right there, something like that, or you're nailing it. So I think lesson that all of us can learn here is to start taking your advice,
no,
looking to maybe you know put some shackles on it.
no. I mean, it's just one of those you just watch. You watch each game, right? And you just see, you see it build up, you build it, it's building and building. And
Hmm.
I tell you what, that equalizer going into half,
Huge.
it was big. And so I saw somebody say on Twitter that Stephen Moreira didn't celebrate because he was too tired from, running
Running
up and
around.
down. But I mean, but before his goal though, there was some they had some chances,
Yeah.
and they were breaking, St. Louis's press.
Hmm.
And it wasn't a high press. It was that mid press to, almost to that final third. And with Nancy's system, passing it, from side to side and back and forward, it just opened up that channel and just, off to the races. Here we go.
And one of the things I really appreciate about like a team like St. Louis or some of the other ones that we've already played is that they don't nobody's like it's not like league wide everyone's trying to attack us the exact same way. So for us, whether we win or not, we are getting really good looks early in the season at different ways that people might try to come and attack you. Whereas I remember like days of the past where I forget, I think it was Red Bull, like had a very specific style and almost everybody tried to attack them the exact same way for the most part, except for a few that would just kind of sit in the back. Now you've got people who were trying to do high press, mid press. Some of them are sitting in the back. So we're getting a wide variety of looks from other teams' defenses. And I think that only bodes well for the future of this team when you get into further into the season where you're going to get more teams that are a little more cohesive now than maybe they even were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and it just goes to like Columbus has conceded, in a couple games the first goal, right?
Hmm.
The end result was a win.
Yeah.
And I think it's, one of those where uh you get smacked in the mouth like Columbus did, in the first 7 minutes. And like I said, it really pissed them off. And it was going back and forth. And it's unfortunate that, for St. Louis, that Joshua Yarrow, he got smacked with the ball. And the doctors, the field doctors, said cleared him. But MLS over there in New York turned around and was watching it. And they took all the precautions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To and even though he wasn't knocked out, he wasn't unconscious. Like Yarrow cleared the air, but it was something that MLS looked and saw on that video, like, didn't want to take any chances
Hmm.
because some of those concussion, symptoms doesn't show up right away, right?
Right.
So, 5 minutes, in after he came back on, MLS is like, hold on, rather safe than sorry, pull him.
Yeah. It felt weird at the
And
time, but you want to see that, right? I mean, ideally, for player safety's sake, you don't want anybody out there concussed to,
yeah,
Lord, anything bad to happen on the field. So while it was weird at the time, like I think we can all, agree it was the right move. And if you got to stop the round or the pace of play in order to get someone off there, I think it's for the best ultimately.
well, I mean that. And St. Louis's coach had Olaf had a choice, right?
Hmm.
He could have waited 5 to 10 minutes on, with Yarrow on the side and been down a man.
Yeah.
So, by him using a concussion, sub, that gave Columbus an extra sub.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask that too because you would know better than I would, but that doesn't go against their typical amount of subs they can use. It just gives us the extra one to be able to use.
They changed it a few years ago,
Okay.
or I should say a couple years ago, because it used to count it as a window.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it used to count it towards your subs, and uh, you know, they changed it to where you could sub them off for the concussion, right? But the other team would also get an extra sub,
Yeah.
which
Which I
could,
think
you
is the
know,
right move.
it is, and it could be crucial too. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're
Uh,
already down, you know, three subs and you only have two more, and there's a concussion sub, now you got a third one that you can add to it. So it's like, you know, wipe the sweat away from, you know, wipe the sweat away from your forehead, and like, okay, now
yeah.
where do I go in my bench, right? But
Hmm.
that all happened in the 33rd minute. But it was going back and forth, not, you know, literally just a dogfight until Steven gets a banger, you know.
He's awesome. I love Stephen Moreira.
Hey, you know, taking that momentum into the to halftime was huge for him, right?
Hmm.
Um, you know, they're on the road in pretty much a hostile, you know, environment. But let's also not take away too, though. There was some, you know, I think there was some in the first half that were called, you know, there was a goal that was waved off for, you know, offside.
Hmm.
It might have been in the second half. I'm not sure. Um, and
It,
speak,
that happens I mean, I just feel like we see it all the time now. Every game there is like at minimum one goal that gets waved off for offsides. Maybe I'm just thinking that's the case, but it feels like literally every game, not just crew games, but like I'm seeing it all the time now. It's happening a lot more, and I'm surprised by it. But I mean, if they're getting the calls right, at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain about that. But it's just wild to see. Like if you could bet on it, you should expect an over of one, if not two, per game at this current pace. It feels like.
and Connor says surprised Sean didn't get yanked after his head injury. You know, I don't think it was that serious of a, a hit to the head. And even the doctors, you know, agreed, but I don't think it was serious enough to take him out. I
I
don't know.
think
Did
too. They
you?
probably look at the entire um, play. So at times, if how did someone get? Are they up in the air and got flipped? Did they get cracked in the back of the head when the ball's coming? I think there's a lot of variety that they look into where it's not just always somebody looks like they got hit in the head and they kind of went down for a second. Not to say that there's a right or wrong in that case, but I think that they probably that's what I'm assuming. They probably, especially MLS headquarters, when they're looking at it, they have a little bit more they can spend a little bit more time looking at and trying to analyze it. And obviously we saw in this game, they're not always just going to go by what the doctor says necessarily, although you don't see it to happen that often that they make an opposite choice than what the doctor said. If they think they're okay to stay in, they might still yank them. But um, all in all, I'm sure they had the same conversation in, New York about, should they do the same thing here based upon what they've seen. But you don't see it happen too much still. Unless someone's on the ground for a really long time. I feel like typically they'll let them go back in other than this specific case, but obviously case by case basis.
Yeah, and you know, looking at the first half, right? Uh Schulte, you know, was standing on his head, right?
Hmm.
You know, after that first goal got by him, you know, it just was like he turned into, like, I don't know, like Dr. Stretch, you know, because it just seemed like he was stretching everywhere. Just that, you know, there was I can't remember if it was in the first half or the second half, but uh It was on a. I want to say it was on a set piece or on a free kick. So I think it was on a free kick, and like Schulte started going one way, but then had to reach all the way back and
Yeah,
barely got it to tip it over. And I'm just
which
like,
is
oof.
tough. You don't see, I mean, not too many people are able to do that in the first place, but to successfully do it either. I mean, how many times do you see someone just kind of stick their arm out, but they're not even close, inevitably? Um, so that's just, I mean, the reaction and being able to quickly pivot to get parts of your body over back in the complete opposite way with momentum going the other way. I mean, it's just, and further cements, I think potential interest in him from these European teams and stuff, maybe even as early as the summer. Hopefully not. I want to keep him forever, but um, that's obviously a discussion for another day. But just in terms of his form currently, I mean, it's amazing. We're not giving up more than like 2 goals a game, except for the one Champions Cup one in LA.
Yeah, that was a fluke. Um,
That's right.
nah, but he just like, man, I think he channeled the emotion that St. Louis had
Mm,
after
yeah,
after scoring the goal because he's from St. Louis. I think he channeled, the hometown vibe
that's right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
just went Super Saiyan, just like everywhere, right? And it was so crazy. Um, but like I said, Marrera gets us on the board, going into halftime. You know, Max got the assist on it. Diego
Hmm.
got the second assist on it. I mean, it was a banger.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, but they go in 1-1. What were your thoughts watching it going into halftime? Like, what did Columbus to you seem like they needed to do?
Oh, I think at that point it was building off the momentum. I mean, I didn't think I mean, the entire game it was a dogfight, but I didn't like at no point did I feel like they were playing lackluster or they were missing a whole lot. I mean, I think one of the things that was evident right away was, St. Louis's stout defense. I think the goal that they got in, I think we were playing great defense. That, like we said, that goal that got in on us might have been, a little more on our end than theirs. But overall, whenever I see, especially I feel like we did this a lot last year in the uh, was it the league or the Champions Cup play, where we were like, it felt like more than once we had times where we would score at half to tie it or to get some kind of momentum going into halftime. So a lot of what I was looking for was not was just improving upon what we were already doing well, in my opinion. So coming out strong, getting everybody still in that right, mind frame. Cause I think it can be, we're not playing professional sports, so you forget about if you were playing any kind of like high school, middle school, any kind of like junior league sport, when you get these types of breaks, it's very easy to get 15, 20 minutes off and lose some of that edge that you had going into halftime. So going in with that momentum and then being able to keep it rolling out into the next half. And I mean, if there's one thing, I guess if I had to pick something that I would want to see more of from our team, and we've done it already a few times this year, so it's not like I'm nitpicking here. It's just getting it like another goal coming out of half. That would be, those types of things. If you can come out of half and dictate immediately and score, um, I mean, there's just huge from a momentum standpoint because you then have the other team wildly on their back foot at all times, and I think we're good at that. So those are things I just like typically look for, but it didn't feel like a game like I've this season seen some where you even after the first half, are like, oh, we're gonna have to really ratchet it up if we expect to tie this game, win this game, that type of thing. And in this one in particular, I didn't feel like I didn't feel down at all going in at half tied up. I was like, we're doing what we need to do. I've got confidence that we can get at least one more, and obviously that proved to be true inevitably.
Well, I think Coach might have listened, listened in the future and all that. No,
Right.
but second half gets underway. There was a substitution, and one Mr. Daniel Gazdog
I was
made his
excited. I
debut.
didn't think we were going to see him, honestly. I just feel like typically Nancy holds out people for. I mean, he was already in form. I know they were saying like he's got to get fit and everything, but I'm like, he's been playing this season. So part of me was like, will we just hold him out and then, play him at the game this coming Saturday? And I was really excited to see him on the bench and then boom, right into the game.
Hey, he made an impact too. Like
Yes.
he made a big impact that, didn't really show too much on, on stat wise,
Hmm.
but you could tell the type of impact that he was going to be bringing in. And uh man, and all of a sudden 10 minutes into the second half, and they were playing tic-tac-toe with Dylan and Diego, like,
Yeah.
tic-tac-toe, and Diego puts one in the back of the net and, continues climbing, in the golden boot race, continues to lead the crew in goals,
Hmm.
and it's just like okay, now we're up to 2-1, and
Yeah.
it's just like
Came
these
right
are
out
the
and did it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the word that that's the worst type of lead is to as a 2-1,
Hmm.
because you have so much pressure. There's so much pressure, to keep that lead, because at any minute, the other team could score, which
Caleb Porter days, we saw that happen all the time to us. I mean, we've got nightmares of that.
man, St. Louis scored, but it was called offside.
Hmm.
Now there was some debate on it that had
Yeah.
the offside flag not come up, and then VAR tells him go look at the monitor. I don't think that goal gets overturned, if the flag doesn't
Yeah.
come up. But since the flag came up and the goal hadn't been scored yet, there was, it had to be clear and obvious for them to overturn it. And man, micro inches, like
Yeah.
blades of grass offside.
Hmm.
So it was one of those that were questionable. But what I think they started to, I don't know about, sub wise, but maybe Nancy could have used a couple more subs.
What were
Um,
we were debating that, was it last week or the week before, about how often does he use all of his subs, and it just it feels like you're like, you have more, but I mean, if we're getting results, so I can't be too upset about it. But if
nah.
we were not getting the results, you better believe that is one thing I would immediately be nitpicking on, because sometimes it drives me crazy. But I mean, it's worked out so far, so I can't not trust the guy when he's doing these.
Yeah, and then the defense held up, and it started getting chippy there towards like the last like 15 minutes of the game, and I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm sitting in the chair
Holding on. Holding on.
ah, like hold on now, fouls around,
Ugh.
the box, and I'm just like,
Oh yeah, the anxiety level in those situations is always just, it creeps. Every minute that goes by, it just gets higher and higher, where you're like, oh no, we're gonna be called for a yellow, something in the box, like something's about to happen.
yeah, and that's what I'm like, oh, come on, y'all getting too close to that box with these fouls, but. Man, and St. Louis brought in Simon Beecher, who happened to be Schulte's teammate at SLU,
Mm,
and he had a perfect shot on Schulte.
yeah.
Perfect. Schulte with that kick save, and it just was like my heart was beating. I'm just like, Like, come on, you got to. And then he made the save, and I'm just
Yeah.
like
He was
man,
doing a
but
lot of those standing on his head, some of those final minutes too, where you're just, eh, you're just like, come on, just get to the whistle, blow the whistle, you have to be done with this.
I swear. And then it's like, all right, 90th minute gets in. I'm like, I see the stoppage time, and I'm like,
Hmm. I was watching it primarily on my phone because my parents didn't, or they don't have Apple Plus, and I wasn't gonna load it up and do everything. And when it was getting to that point, my stepdad was like, "How many extra minutes are there usually in games?" Is right before it, and I was like, like you saw like last year in some of the like international games in the World Cup and stuff that they would have like 15 extra minutes. I said that's not normal. Maybe you get like a few minutes at most, and then all of a sudden they drop like a ton of them on us. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm eating my words. Never mind. Now we're just in for hold on and wait for the storm to pass and hope that we don't get swept up in it.
man. And it just was like that stoppage time came, and I'm just like, I don't have enough alcohol to calm me down.
Right.
And it's
All of a
just like,
sudden the
okay,
drinks are going down a lot quicker and the fridge is getting emptier by the minute. And you're like, we got to be done. Wrap this
like
up.
I had my Dr. Pepper, and I'm sitting there like I went through a whole 2 liter watching it, and I'm just like I'm just like,
There is
I
a
think I
thing, you
would.
know how like people, I don't, I mean, I feel like a lot of sporting events I go to where I gets in these tight situations and you start drinking quicker because you're just like nervous is drinking, whether it's soda, beer, mixed drink, whatever it may be. And I feel it's very much a thing. Like you're like, let's just be done. I'm so stressed now that I'm just hammering whatever kind of liquid I can find. I need I need to have the sigh of relief at the end.
Like, I think I went through almost a whole pack of cigarettes. I remember jumping onto the post game, looking at my pack, like, yeah, it's too late for me to leave right now. I'm not. I'm not throwing. I had shorts on. I'm like, I'm not throwing pants on to go out the house.
Right.
I'm just. I'm looking at it like, oh well. But now, nonetheless, the black and gold, or my bad, the crew admin for their social media came up with a new one. The black
Oh,
and glow
oh, that's what we're going with now, huh? Okay.
for the with the Goosebumps
With the
kit.
good, only when we're wearing those kits, I'm assuming, right?
I
Okay.
hope they play on it. But the
Yeah.
black and glow came home with with 3 points and the win, and sick, not too comfortably on top of the East, but
We
they're
got some
still unbeaten.
favorable results. You mentioned it was a good weekend for us, and it wasn't just us winning. I mean, you had Miami and Chicago go to it was 0-0, right? I'm not mistaken on that.
Yeah,
Okay, 0-0. That's what I thought. And I could not be I saw that and was like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me." That was a result. That actually was the result of the weekend that like really blew my mind. Because Saturday there was a bunch of ties, which actually really surprised me as well, because you don't see as many ties, but it felt like there were a lot of them. But then, like to that result in particular, I was like, "Wow!" So they went up there and just didn't do a whole lot of anything. Plus, what a boring game to be at if you're a Chicago fan and you're waiting for Messi to come, because I don't think he went there last year, right? What, didn't he not play that game? Okay, that's what
nope.
I thought. And then they finally get to see him. Hopefully, this isn't some kind of precursor for this weekend. Knock on wood. And they didn't have a lot of fireworks, one way or the other, for their team. So I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, and just a quick one too. Taha Hebron went down,
Mm,
and
yeah.
with a looked like a head injury. He is back training with the team.
Did they say he's like good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw.
Yeah, he's good to go. He
That's
was,
great. It's great news.
participating in full first team. Not off the side or anything. So that's a good update on that. But the Crew sit in first place above Charlotte,
It's shocking.
FC Cincinnati.
Are they all the way up to third?
Yes,
Oh, haven't looked at them since
they went from
midday on
10th to
Sunday.
3rd in like 2 weeks.
I was gonna say we were just like laughing about how they were like out of the playoff picture, and now they're just skyrocketed. You know what?
Inter
We're gonna get through
Miami
that.
sits at Inter Miami sits at 4th. Philly, Nashville sit in 5th and 6th. Orlando, Chicago, and Red Bulls are sitting 7th, 8th, and 9th. NYC is sitting 10th. Atlanta is 11th. New England is sitting at 12th. DC is sitting at 13. Toronto at 14. Montreal at 15.
Some of those TV markets that the MLS just absolutely loves are not necessarily pulling their weight too much right now.
No, and
On
that's
either side,
that's
actually, even on the West, the Galaxy are in like dead last, right?
yeah, and you gotta feel bad a little bit for Christian. He
Yeah,
goes home, goes to the Galaxy, and they're sitting last.
yeah, that's a
You
bummer. I
know,
mean,
it's
that's just a bummer all around.
but
Absolutely,
he wanted to go home, so we're not gonna
that's
stop you from going home. So
that's right. That's what
and
you
the
wanted. There you are.
and the Crew do sit in second place in supporter shield race right now behind Vancouver.
Also wild. That's just crazy.
Brian White scoring 4 goals. Like, thank God we don't play him.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so this is setting up that game against St. Louis. Winning that one on the road. The Crew have tied their longest
Win streak
unbeaten streak
or unbeaten streak. Yeah.
to start a season off. So which is huge, and then we'll touch on it later. But hey, one of only 2 teams undefeated out of
Hmm.
2 out of 30 teams.
Which, I mean, I would have not thought that. I know we were getting on the whole, let's just calm down and see how it goes and everything. But like, none of us would have predicted that that would be the case at this point in the season without, I mean, Gazdag, he's played half of a game with us. So it's not like you could almost just factor that part out a little bit in terms of just what this team has done with who we have and who we had at the beginning of the season and how well they performed. I mean, I think for anybody following the league, except for maybe Nancy and the guys in the locker room and maybe the front office and stuff, I don't think anyone expected the potential of getting to this point of leading the conference and having an undefeated streak right now.
There's only 3 games in the league so far that Columbus, or 2 games that Columbus have not scored a goal, have not scored in at all this year.
That's crazy.
Houston and New York City.
And we tied them.
Yeah.
And we tied those games.
We've scored in every single game except for Houston and New York City.
And we've had obviously a committee behind our 2 strikers that have obviously helped out. But I mean, I think we can all agree that Diego and Russell Rowe have stepped it up like we hoped that they would in terms of contributing to these goal scoring opportunities. And I just, I love that because that's a lot of pressure for anybody to have. Diego obviously has seen a little bit more of that than Russell Rowe has, but I think, Nancy said in one of his media availabilities that this is what they expected from him. Like they were pretty confident in his ability to get to this point. And, I was hard on him at the beginning of the season just because I was going off of what I saw last season and I was totally wrong, which I am more than happy to admit on because he has been playing a lot better. And I think now we're going to have three guys up there, which we've become accustomed to. And I think teams are going to be in for quite a surprise when now they've got three again, and not surprise in terms of like that we'll have three people legitimately able to score goals, but the fact that a lot of them were probably thinking we'll be able to just focus on the two and catch Columbus in one way or another. And now you've got the three of them, two of which are out here picking up the slack for when there was only two of them. So you've got three legitimate threats. And it is very nice to see. And I'm glad that Russell Rowe is made me eat all of those negative words I was saying about him at the beginning of the season, because he has shown up, and even when he's not scoring, he's putting them in the position to score just by, sometimes just being there and drawing that attention and freeing up room for Diego or anyone else who comes up, like Marrera or anyone.
Yeah, you and Connor both have to eat all that damn crow about Jason.
I was very tough on him, and going into now getting another person and looking back on it. I mean, he was already performing on everything, obviously, but now that you have a third person and you see where you're at and everything, it even puts it more into perspective of just how good he has been in that role. And it almost makes me now like wonder, because I wondered this a little bit, and then I would see him play, and I'm like, okay, I get it, because I know he started some games for Canada last year and the year before, and I was like, all right, he's not really scratching a lot of playing time for us. So, and when he did, like, then he was missing a lot of shots, and now I'm wondering why they're not moving him up there and calling him up more. Now, granted, I don't want them taking him away from us so he can play. So maybe I'm actually on board with them and not calling him up, but
I
I'm
mean,
sure for him, he would like to be.
It's Jesse Marsh, and then on top of that, Canada is loaded in the
Mhm.
forward position. So you could get called up, but you don't know if you're going to get valuable playing minutes.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. But we'll touch on them coming back, to the state of Ohio later on.
Great home.
But let's get to this because it was a heartbreaker yesterday.
Oh yeah, this just
Um,
stunk.
I was there.
I
Um,
wanted to go, but because I got back on Monday night, we had a work thing I had to like prep for, so I actually didn't even get out of work until probably 7 or so. So at that point I was like, I was watching some of it on my phone while I was at work, and then was like, by the time I get there, we're going to be well into the second, half. So I watched a fair amount of it, and it was brutal. I mean, it just stunk all around. Not the over. I mean, just the result.
yeah, I mean, but from the gate, Pittsburgh, was physical to let the young kids know, let the young cappies know,
Right.
hey, it's a man sport, right? And and it was just to see how would they respond, right? So
Hmm.
Cappies took on Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the third round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. And, from the get go, it was physical. And that goal honestly took an unfortunate bounce.
Hmm.
Like Pruder, he made the save, but when he punched it, it went backwards.
It just defies a lot of what we assume would happen from like a physics standpoint. Yeah,
Like
it's just like it's a
he
freak
made
thing.
a beautiful save, but when he
Hmm.
punched, I think it might have hit down.
Oh yeah.
So when it hit, it curved, to the back, to the far post, and it just was like that was unfortunate. And I give credit to Pittsburgh; they played some stifling defense,
Hmm.
but also at the same time, the Cappies weren't, and intimidated.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they were doing everything they could. Like Chase had a couple chances. Um, who there was some other chances too, like Ferdinand, Keyshawn Ferdinand had a chance or two. Tristan Brown had a chance. I think Owen had a chance. Um, but they came out, it just was one of those that set pieces killed the Cappies.
Yeah.
And well, I ain't gonna say it killed them. It hurt them, and
Yeah.
Pittsburgh made him pay on it. But that second half, though, Cappies came out aggressive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were taking chances. There was like it was late in the game, and they were putting pressure on Pittsburgh. Like the ball was not leaving the final third, that 18-yard box. Like it was going all around. And like they were
Yeah.
taking shots, taking chances, and just somehow Pittsburgh cleared it out. And you know, um, Tristan Brown picked up a yellow card in the first half, right? For pulling, stopping a guy,
Yeah.
on a potential, run. So he got a yellow card. Well, late in the second half, Owen was getting pulled on a break, starting a breakout, and nothing.
That.
And then there was a foul on the far sideline, right? That I forget who it was, but was fouled and fell on top of the ball. And there was no foul, against Pittsburgh. But the Cappies kept the ball and started an attack through that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it just was one of those where it was like it could have been called a little more consistent,
Yeah.
right? But the center official was his first, Open Cup game.
I wondered about that. Do they use specific they don't use
they
MLS refs, right?
they use pro.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they use pro.
Are they experienced ones?
This one, it was his
Was
first
not.
Open Cup. It was
Okay,
his
yeah,
first Open Cup game.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
this
sure
is
he
his
had a
first
little
time.
nerves going on too.
Yeah, I mean, but he was letting them play. Don't get
Which
me wrong.
yeah, which is nice. I mean, to an extent, obviously.
Yep. So now the Cappies run comes to an end in the U.S. Open Cup, and Pipa said after in the post game that it stings, for him,
Mm-hmm.
and
Certainly.
he took responsibility. He is like, it was my fault that I didn't have him better prepared, and now it's time to turn attention to the league,
Yeah.
right? And focus on that, and just get better and better, and develop the players more. And it's just like, hey, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I'm fine with it, right? Because you got a new head coach. The average age for the team is 18.
I was gonna mention that too. I mean, I don't know exactly what the makeup is of the Riverhounds in terms of if they've all been playing together for a while, but
Some of them
team
have.
I was gonna say teams like that in that league, um, a lot of them inevitably there's not a ton of turnover necessarily unless they're moving up or things like that. And I mean this is a team, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, that have given the first team trouble in these types of tournaments in the past. So I, part of me was like, when you, like you said, when we're have a team of the average age of being 18, a lot of them have not played together other than the past few months, versus a team that's played together more often than not as a cohesive unit in their league, to an extent, only to lose 1-0 is not
It's huge.
some kind of thing. Yeah, it's not something that should be super down on our team about. I think more so the results that you see when they're doing heavy league play is what you can really base them off of versus a tournament like this. I mean, I don't think at the end of the day you can view it as some big failure. I can understand Pipa's view on it because obviously he has such a storied history with cup performance or Open Cup performances and things like that. It's a little bit different for him. But the team overall, I mean, I think you would agree the pieces are there for that team to be really good. And there's obviously a ton of talent that we're probably going to see at some point on the Columbus first team if all things shake out well from their development standpoint.
All right, Connor. Connor says the Cappies are shit this year. Now, Connor, you're about to go into timeout. The Cappies are not like. Yes, the results in the standings doesn't, give them, do them any justice. It's a new head coach bringing his system in. The average age, like we said, is 18. You got kids that are 14, 15, 16 years old playing next pro. Granted, it is it's a junior varsity for the first team if you look at it in that aspect, but there is so much talent on there. But next pro is a developmental league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those where you have to, you want to develop those players so they could continue the pathway to MLS and get the first team call-ups, right? Or another first team from around the league, says, hey, we see this person on your next pro team, can we get him from you? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much, if you look at Pipa's record, he took over Inter Miami 2, right? Their first year, they didn't do anything. His second year, they were ahead of time, ahead of schedule, right? And they had a nice run last year in MLS Next Pro.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes with getting a new coach. Everybody can't be like Nazi. Every team, you can't have a head coach like Nazi and that team picks it up quick and, you get the results that you get, right? So there are some where it does take that time.
And if you look at Courtois, I mean, he did really well with them. Now, granted, going to Montreal, he gets head coaching experience, but also that team in particular, that's not necessarily the best place to maybe get your head coaching start. And he is already jettisoned out of there. So, while we looked at him as a really good coach, he couldn't overcome some of those things and getting to the next level either. So to even just look at, I think, coaching may be a little short-sighted. I think you need to give them time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, in fairness, Courtois with having the squad that he did, in 22.
Yeah.
Next Pro was still brand new. So there was not all the teams. Every
There's
team
way
didn't
more
have
now.
every team didn't have a Next Pro team. Right. So, and then on top of that, the talent level wasn't there yet. And then you see, some talent come in the second year. It was Austin FC2 versus Columbus in the final. So then last year, Columbus made it to the playoffs for a third straight year. So there's the season is still young for them. It's just people just got to give them time, and Pipa doesn't necessarily run the same system as Nazi. He came out against Pittsburgh in a 3-5 or a 5-3-2. So we'll see, what he comes out with, for the next match. Right. But all right. So Cappies are done with the Open Cup. Now they can focus on next pro play. You ready to get into the meat and the potatoes of the show?
Sure.
This Saturday, April 19th, the Black and Gold travel up I-71 to the city of Cleveland, where they will play host as the home team against Inter Miami and Messi and company. I believe it's what, a 4:30 start
I think it's
on Saturday.
4:30. I just looked at I'll look it up real quick.
It's a marquee matchup midday.
Is it on FX or Fox maybe? Let me see if it says.
The hell
It
if I know,
is
I'm gonna be there.
same. It is a 4:30 game. And
We know it's on Apple.
Oh, so maybe it's just on Apple then. Yeah, it's 4:30. I don't see any other information.
Yeah, so it's just on Apple, but nonetheless, battle of the unbeatens, two giants of the Eastern Conference right now, going head to head, and I know I might catch a little heat for it, but I actually like the graphic of the helmets.
Oh no, no!
I do, because I mean it.
I could not get on board with that. I'm not usually a stickler for stuff like that, but
you got to look at it though. You're playing on the marketing of where you're playing, right?
Chicago plays at Soldier Field, and they didn't do that.
Well, Chicago's marketing team sucks.
I also think that some of our marketing team members are probably from the Browns also, to a degree. Maybe not. I could be totally wrong. That's more of a guesstimation, but
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I will just on my side of it. I'm just like they lean. Frankly, I'm not surprised. I just figured they would not be able to help themselves with putting some kind of football graphic out there. I did think it was fun. Not that I think that they would use black as like the main one, because of course, like it's too eerily similar to the Steelers. But I saw that and immediately I sent it to a buddy and I was like, I'm not on board with this. But I immediately knew, I'm like, I know the comment sections of wherever this is going to be posted are just going to be wild.
They were like, oh my God. But I sort of like it. You're playing off. It's almost similar to what the Jackets did with the Stadium series, right?
Yeah.
You're playing off where you're playing, marketing wise, right?
It's this big special location that you're doing it. Not, I mentioned Chicago, but they play there all the time.
But just a CBJ update. Montreal is up 3-1 at the end of the second.
I saw that and I just didn't want to say anything. I was so depressed. Bad. That's not good for the CBJ for any of you inquiring minds.
There's 20 minutes left.
All or nothing.
Impossible is just an option.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
But nonetheless, like I said, I sort of like the helmets, but they're playing in Cleveland. I get the whole, more seats, more money, more fans, more eyes. I would love to have it at lower.com. Game is here. It's game week. Nothing much, more needs to be said about it. I know there's going to be people that are going to, throughout the whole week, but it's here, right? Let's get through it. Let's move on. Let's cheer the lads, whatever. You could protest, drink your beer, shout at a wall, whatever. But, at the end of the day, you're still supporting the team, right?
Right. Whether you're at home or you're at the stadium, just support the team.
Morning, Manuel. No, but I mean, it's a blockbuster game, honestly, and I think it should have been. I think it should have been night.
That would have been cool.
Throw the lights on of Huntington Field. Throw it on. Make it a special time of 8 o'clock.
Do you think that they didn't do that because they were afraid it would be too cold? Not too
No,
cold, but so you don't think it had anything to do with the weather at all? Okay.
I
Yeah,
th- I
I mean, I
think
don't know.
I think they wanted this matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
This marquee matchup. I think they wanted it alone,
Yeah, I
its
get that.
own time, right?
Yeah. There isn't
And
really
I don't.
anything.
Well, there's no other MLS game.
I
Um,
Okay, that makes sense. I figured that would be the case, but I just didn't look to see what the schedule was for other teams. If there was
you know,
anybody.
a standalone game at 4 o'clock. I got the schedule here.
They typically have one on Saturday afternoons, every Saturday, usually, I've noticed. I've watched a few, not a bunch of them, but
So it's Galaxy and Austin at 1:45.
oh wow, that's okay. I don't remember them having a game so far this season that was that early.
Well, they've had them.
Have they? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize that. Wait, what time is it?
1:45 p.m.
And where are they playing at? Well, it's got to be
Austin.
Austin. Dang, so they're having a game before 1 o'clock in Austin start?
Yep.
That's wild.
And then
That is
then
crazy.
the crew game is at 4:30,
Okay.
and then everything else follows suit. So I see why doing it at 4:30. It's not because of the weather, not because of the temperature.
Yeah,
They want this marquee matchup.
to be the thing.
Yeah, the focal point. It's messy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Manuel says never been to Huntington before. Are you going, Manuel? Tom Lewis the fourth. It's because I get home after the game.
That's true. If you're
Hey,
driving back down, it would be late when you get back if that were a night game.
are you going?
Yeah, we got a hotel, so we're gonna stay the
Oh,
night up there.
damn! I would have said we could have raced you back to Columbus.
No, heck no. I'm like, look, there is no way I am driving
Uh,
back that night as well.
yeah, I have to, but cool to see a team with trophies play in Inter Miami.
I was thinking that earlier today, actually. Is a funny aside of, yeah, you guys have Messi, but we actually have won stuff. So, like,
You like I tell Cincinnati fans, right? Y'all can have the supporter shield, so y'all can use your wooden spoons to eat off of it. We got
yeah, that
we
big
got three,
plate looking thing.
we got 3 plates plus goblets
Mm-hmm.
that we drink out of.
Yep.
So, so yeah, hey, oh, you got yeah, he's a season ticket holder, so
I
well,
will say that is I got to give them a little bit of credit for that because I think it could have been really easy. I mean, there would have been the biggest uproar, but it could have been really easy for them to say, this is not part of your ticket package. You got to buy them separately, this whole thing. So the fact that while yes, driving up there and stuff, and if you're staying the night and everything is certainly an inconvenience and cost money and all of that. I totally agree with that. The fact that you get a ticket to the actual game as part of your season ticket package is still nice to have because it would have been very easy for them to say, no, you got to pay extra for it. So I'm glad that that's a part of it.
yeah, I've never been to the Cleveland Brown Stadium or Huntington Park Field, whatever it
Oh,
is now.
I went one
Um,
time for a Green Bay Packers Browns game. I'm a Packers fan. And it was in December. This was the year that Rodgers was hurt, and I think they had Mayfield at the time, and he was hurt. So we ended up getting the tickets, and it was two backup quarterbacks playing each other. But it was so cold. I've been to games at Lambeau, and they have not been as cold as the game was in Cleveland. It was insane. And I will say it was really easy, maybe because it was so cold, to run up the stairs and get a beer at the concession stand. So maybe people will have that to look forward to if it's still
Man.
consistently like that. That's the only time I've been there though.
So I haven't been there, so this is gonna be fun. Connor says, "Did you know the Crew will be the first team with trophies to play in Cleveland?" False.
I was gonna say, I think that's wrong.
False, because now the NFL recognizes before the championships before it became the NFL, and now that puts Cleveland at 8 championships.
I was gonna say, well, I guess he said Cleveland. My thought immediately went to, I think the Cavs have won with LeBron, but
Yep.
if he means the like the stadium and football and soccer kind of all, if we're combining all of that, I actually didn't even know that about the NFL acknowledging all of those as well. So I guess that's still incorrect.
Yeah. And then also, I think this would be the first ever professional soccer match at Cleveland Brown Stadium.
Yeah, I think you might be right, because I don't think
So,
that the European did their summer. You know how they do the summer tour?
yeah.
I don't think they've done one up there. Not yet, at
Not
least.
to my knowledge, but I could find out. Manuel says you get free parking, free food, and free drink.
Yeah, it's like what, like a $20 voucher? I mean, I know they'll probably. I don't know how much prices are. I don't remember at an NFL game by any means, but I'm sure they'll probably be equivalent because prices at Crew games have certainly gone up as well. But I thought that was pretty nice, though, to get a voucher. I mean, I'm not over here trumpeting the horn for the front office for some of the decision making of it overall, but I was not mad about that. I mean, if you can get like food and a soda, I'm sure beer is not included in that, but if you're going to get like a food and soda or something, I mean, that's not the worst deal in the world by any means.
Yeah. So, what is it that Columbus has to be worried about besides Messi?
I mean, I think so correct me if I'm wrong, but Suarez hasn't scored this season, has he? Or did we go over this? Did he score one? I
I
forget.
think
He was a
he.
part of that list we were talking about last week, and I'm totally blanking. Maybe he has
I think
one.
he has one goal.
He almost bit his own teammate not too long ago as well, if anyone saw that. So he is still capable of doing that, apparently. I mean, I would say, look, it's Miami. So, like, if you look at their team on paper, they've got so many superstars. I mean, you could almost more so pick out who isn't a threat on that team, because there are just so many names that have the capability of taking a game over at any given time. Um, I will dive further into it, but I don't know that I'm necessarily scared of them overall. Um, but when it comes to them, and Messi's obviously the number one, but when you think of everyone else, I'm like, it really could be anybody who could show up and all of a sudden play out of their mind, and we didn't expect it.
Here's a funny stat. Miami sits fourth in yellow cards. They sit first with red cards.
Oh, I didn't know
With
that.
3. They have 3 red cards, 22 yellow cards.
22 yellow already? That's a ton. That is a lot.
DC United has 23.
Oh, sheesh. Where we sit on that ranking? Do you have that?
Yellow cards. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold on. I think we sit like 22nd in the league with 12.
We don't get a ton of them.
I'm about to count down.
We have like what, one red, I think. I forget who it was now. Or are they counting accumulation even? I don't think we have accumulation. I mean, that alone just screams like,
We're 23rd
okay.
with 12 yellow cards, one red. If you look at where we sit with the red cards, we sit 1, 2, 3, 4 in fourth. Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams all with one red card.
Connor pointed out
And
who multi got a red card.
yeah,
I remembered it was somebody. I couldn't remember who, but yeah,
San
you're
Diego.
right. Yeah.
It was in the San Diego match. So there's 6 teams with one red card, and Miami with 3.
Now I do see a lot of clips online because I'm not watching. Maybe it's just out of like internal protest. I don't know why, but I never really watch any Miami games. But when I do see like clips online from like league highlights or Miami games in particular, it does seem like they're always in some kind of scrum going on, like arguments with the officials, pushing other players, their own guys are tackling each other. Like there's a lot of that goes on, and I think our style of play could lend itself to maybe frustrating them a little bit. Now I know that we played them a lot last year, so maybe they're going to be a little more apt to how they respond to that, but there is definitely a potential for some yellows and reds in this game based upon our style of play versus how they react to things clearly.
So Columbus has one player that's leading a category. You want to know who it is? Just take a guess.
Is it a positive or a negative category?
It's a positive.
I would say fouls committed against us on Nagby. Well, it should be. I should preface that actually. It should be fouls committed against us on Nagby, but I'm sure it's not.
It is Yevon Shaberko with leading touches.
Wow.
730.
Oh my goodness.
Above 2 San Diego players, 1 Red Bull, and an RSL player.
Huh.
He has 10 more touches than Noah Isle for the Red Bulls.
I would have never guessed that.
No, not the Red Bulls player. Tverkov or Tzerkov or whatever.
From San Diego?
Yeah. He has 720. Yevon has 730.
So, I mean, that shows we do play. I mean, I know that our style doesn't technically play out of the back necessarily, but there's a lot of that kind of begins the build versus just constantly kicking back to him. Like we're doing a lot of side to side, and a lot of that gets fed through the back at first before we get it moved up to the middle. So I guess that makes sense. It also just shows how much he's played this season, which I don't think. I mean, I guess the end of last season, Camacho was definitely not in top form, but he's obviously been injured all season, so it makes sense that Shaberko would get a lot. But yeah, I mean, to lead the league in that is, not something I would have predicted or even obviously couldn't even guess.
Yeah, so I mean, it's also too. You talk about Camacho. I didn't ask Nazi today, if there was an update on how Rudy was doing, but also at the same time, when you got a guy like Yevon that's playing, great on the defensive end, defensive line, it's hard to take him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Camacho is going to be. He's almost now
a sub.
You hate to see it because of injuries, of course, but you don't want to see anyone lose their starting spot because of it. But yeah, I would consider him a really good sub to be able to come in when he's fully fit and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, but back to the giant in the room. This is going to be a test though for Columbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you lose Kucha, you lose Christian, you get to this point where you're unbeaten up to this match, and you get a guy like Daniel Gazan, right? So how is it? What what do you think it's going to look like, or not look like, but does he start this week? You
I
know,
would
do you,
I would think so, due to the magnitude of the game. Now, I don't know. I mean, I think you or I would probably look at it more so that way. Nancy's a little bit different. I mean, he's more of a he does this a lot more in like a chess type way where he's going to have much more of a strategy involved with it. So it's not going to like I'm not going to be surprised or shocked if he doesn't. I would start him, but I'm also not a coach. So I think just pure talent and everything, like it would be great to start him. But also, like, we have a system. So how well has he been adapting to that in practice? It looked pretty good when he got in for that period of time against St. Louis. But now you want to see, hopefully, we're close enough to a full game from him if he is going to start against a team like Miami. But I also think it's not like they're not going to start all their best players. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, we got to start him. Of course, it makes sense. But, or in my heart, I should say, but in my mind, I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't, just because he didn't start the last game. And you want to, again, see how well he's adapted to the system and what he needs to do in it, because it's going to be different than what he did in Philadelphia. And they wouldn't have gotten him if they didn't think he could do that, obviously. And he's such a great caliber of player. But that could certainly be a wrinkle if he did come off the bench and surprise them a little bit. You just don't want to be down a few goals when that time comes, obviously.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna, and you're going up against one of the greatest soccer players of all time. I think I think he does start as well. Just because it now opens up Diego and Jason,
Mm-hmm.
right? It did look good seeing him, the number 8 back out there,
Yeah.
um, on the field, but it's kind of one of those where you can't let Miami score first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to be the ones to dictate everything. And it was brought up today in media availability that Miami has struggled to get into a complete defensive, get back into a complete defensive formation.
Interesting.
So it's one of those, like, I think Columbus can hurt Miami on those counters, because, and here's where I think they struggle, is the agement, aspect.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those where the age is there. Yeah, they might be scoring, still able to score at a high pace, right? But you have to play defense.
And I was thinking that earlier today when I was thinking about this, is the way we do a lot of stretching the field, ping ponging the ball around, like those types of things, you inevitably are going to stretch them out. And, you've got
Wear them down.
higher up in age. Suarez doesn't necessarily have like, he's had a lot of like knee issues and leg issues and things like that. So how much is he going to want to be involved in sprinting back and forth? And same thing with Messi. I mean, again, I haven't watched a ton of their games, but there is at times where if they get beat on like a high press or something, like he is not necessarily somebody who is going to be one of the strikers, and not half the league isn't like this in the first place, but just saying, he's not one of those ones that's going to come back and all of a sudden be in the box helping on defense in a lot of cases. So if you can spring on them And also the fact that you're not replacing Cucho with a like for like. So
Mhm.
even though last year we played them a lot and they may be comfortable with even playing our style, you're getting a very different player in that, in that front line that you're going up against than what you were with Cucho. So you have to account for that because it may seem like Cucho was a little bit all, not in a bad way, a little bit all over the place. You may not get as much of that, and it may actually be beneficial because they're kind of expecting it, where they're kind of looking all around and everything, and you are able to, again, have three different players up top that are going to be acting in a very different, same way, but very different way than maybe what their anticipation is going to be.
Yeah, and we got a player now in Daniel Gazdog that can draw penalties in the box.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was reading from a lot of this stuff because I just hadn't watched a lot of his things prior to us getting him, and I noticed a lot of articles were saying that. Which, I mean, who doesn't like that, right?
Which is why, a team that has 22 yellow cards and 3 red cards, if you could draw those penalties in that box like Gazdog can, we might be having, two to, two PKs, right?
That'd be awesome.
You
I used to
know,
be
I
going
mean,
nuts for that.
hey, but that's the kind of player that we're getting,
Hmm.
right? We're getting somebody that can cause havoc in that, in that 18-yard box, right? And get to the spot, which I can't. I wish it was Saturday right now.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited. Like at the beginning of the season, I was just like, all right, cool. We're playing, we're doing this, in Cleveland, all these different things. It's like, well, I'll worry about when we get to it. But now I fully agree. I'm so excited for it. And one thing I was going to bring up, and I haven't tracked like how many of the pitches that all the teams play on are, you know, their own stadiums versus football stadiums versus, in the NYCFC's case, a baseball field. Does Messi, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just me spitballing on my head throughout the day, Messi doesn't necessarily perform necessarily well in these like football stadium environments. Like he wasn't.
He doesn't really like turf.
Mhm. Do we know if I saw a video that they put out where they were definitely laying down maybe grass or something?
I think they were putting grass down, in the stadium.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's probably gonna be a almost realistic grass, a synthetic grass, but not turf.
Mhm.
Um, which I don't think he did too well at Mercedes Benz.
No.
I
No,
don't
he
think he's
didn't.
played. I don't think he's played at Gillette yet.
Oh, okay.
I think he played one game at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, and that's the only three.
Chicago
He did
this past
play. He
weekend.
played Chicago last weekend.
Now, historically, their grass is, now I don't know how it was there,
Their
but I know
field sucks.
once the football season starts, their field is awful. Just absolutely terrible. So I don't know if that could have maybe played a factor into it, perhaps. I didn't see like what the grass and everything looked like there, but um, yeah, historically theirs is pretty bad.
Yeah, and I don't think he's played NYC.
Now, are some of these by decision, or is it because he's been injured? because it feels like he's been in the league long enough that I'm surprised that he hasn't played in all of them, at least in the Eastern Conference. But I know that last year he was injured for like half the season, something like that, maybe. The season
Injury,
before he was injured, right? Exactly.
injury.
Um, but this one, the league's probably like giving a hard push in the back of like, you need
You
to go
have to
play,
play.
whether you like
Yeah,
it or not. You better go do it. Um,
yeah.
so
He was
Connor's over
injured.
here with the right. He was injured. He's like, oh yeah, I woke up, stepped out of bed, and my foot didn't feel right. I don't think I can go. Connor's
I
over
got too
here. He's
much.
got the details about the grass. He's saying that the Browns feels Kentucky bluegrass, same as LDC. Um, is that their
Possible.
current? Is it their current or the grass they put down? They definitely put some down. It didn't look that great, which I was a little like worried about. But
It's
what do
early in the
I don't
week.
know enough about turf grass or whatever to know much
I
necessarily.
think I think they might have been laying down like the foundation,
Mm,
and then everything else to go on top.
yeah.
But who knows? Fun part of the show. What's your prediction?
I was thinking about this because I feel like I could see it being like 3-4 or 2-3, something like that. But then also part of me is like, of course, it could easily be 1-0 or something just because of is that Dragon Ball Z?
Yep.
Absolutely love that. Um, but I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go 2-3 because I just think that on paper it's Miami as much as like against my better judgment because I do feel like that we can outpace them and that it shouldn't be a 1-goal win if we can do that, in my opinion, just on how we've played. I know that might sound kind of crazy to some people, but that's how I'm feeling about it. I think that, I mean, Messi will probably get a goal, at minimum one, if not both of them. But I also think that Diego's going to score. Um, I think that Gazdog's going to score. One question I have is if we get to a penalty kick, who's going to take that?
Gazog.
You think so? Then maybe that's how he gets his goal. I don't know for sure. But I think his first game, it just feels like a scenario in which he's going to get one. And then I don't, third one could really be anybody. I mean, if it was Russell Rowe, that'd be great if all three of our guys, and then I can just am envisioning them doing like some kind of tribute to the three hard hat guys, like new era. I know
You can't do
that
that.
might be, and part of me was like, that might be a little blasphemous. I know. Maybe they will get something, they'll think of something throughout the week to do. That would be cool. But I think somebody will. I just don't know who. I'm actually waiting to hear yours because you've been much more spot on in your predictions than I have recently. So on goal scores at minimum. But yeah, I'm gonna go 3-2. Us.
I'm gonna go 3-2.
Oh, okay.
I think Messi gets one. Um, I don't know who the other one would be for Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, as far as us go, see Gazdog getting one. Um, Jason. And the third one, it's going to be either or.
Okay.
It's my third one. It's going to be either Max or Mo.
Ooh, Mo Farsi. I love Mo Farsi, so I would be wildly excited about that. That would be
I
great.
think I think this one is where Jason gets one off of an assist from Gazdog.
Yeah.
I think Mo's is Mo, either Mo's or Max is coming off of a a shot as they're cutting into the box.
I was literally about to follow you up by making like piggybacking off that as a prediction. Like I could, they're very good at cutting in. I could totally see that.
But my wild card for a goal is Nagby.
This is you were talking, what was it?
And
Three bangers this season.
I say Nagby with it being him and Sean
Hmm?
are my two wild cards for a goal. And the reason being is both of them are from Northeast Ohio.
Yeah. You know
And
Nagby's definitely gonna try at minimum once to try to laser one in there because of just the sheer he grew up in this area, the stadium, all this whole thing.
yeah. Connor says 3-1. We put belt to ass. I
I
would, I
am
would,
just
I would love that to happen, but I'm not being bold this week.
watch the
Um,
week you don't go bold is the week that they just like go absolutely crazy.
bonkers.
Yeah.
Manuel says 2-2. Messi free kick nightmare relived. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
um,
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't.
you always gotta factor
I,
that in as maybe a possibility.
worst case, it ends in a draw.
Hmm.
But I see this as a power grab.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, I see it as a power grab to who's going to take control of the East.
Yeah.
So
And I could see the Crew having a mentality of if they can put their foot on Miami's necks right off the bat, of just not letting off the gas. Like just being like the confidence level goes through the roof and they're like, we are in charge and we're not letting you back in this thing. Now, obviously, I think it's got to be up more than 1-0 at that point. You got to go like 2-0, something like that. But I think I could see a scenario in which they come out and they're just like, it's game time. I don't see a scenario in which they come out really flat and get the doors blown off them. That would be the most shocking result in my mind.
and what else is have we beat Inter Miami in league play in the past 2 years? No. We've drawn or we've lost. So I think I asked Molde today if there was a chip, losing to them, when they still had a chance for the supporter shield. And he sort of downplayed it a little bit. Like the past is the past. That was last year. We're focused on the here and now. I think there's a chip there.
That's very Nancy speak, isn't it? He's gotten
Yeah.
into them real good. That even no matter
Yeah.
what they're actually thinking, we'll never know because of just unless they decide to let us know.
Yeah. So, well, my good friend, we're at the end. It's always been fun.
Yes.
You have any burning desires or itches that you want to get off your chest?
Oh, you know what? I know we're not doing yellow card, red card right now, but if I did have a red card, it would be for everybody. And if you've already done one, you can't take it back, I guess. But I'm seeing a lot of people online doing these AI things with they're all making action figures of themselves and posting them. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It is just stop with it. It's too much. It's overkill. I don't like
Some
it's
of it's funny.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that they're actually like good and like they add the little accessories next to them and stuff, like all great and everything. But oh my goodness, talk about a fad just flooding all of social media. Like I don't know. These are all like stupid things that I see, and then just irrevocably it gets stuck in my head where I'm just get annoyed by it for no reason whatsoever. So if you have fun doing it, by all means continue it on. But for whatever reason, I just happened to be thinking about that today as I was on LinkedIn, and it was just like every two articles, it was people posting their little things on there, and I was like, okay, just we're done. move on to the next thing. And then at the end of the year, when they do some kind of like pop culture recap, someone will bring it up and we'll completely have forgot that everyone was doing that. And then we'll be like, oh my gosh, that was this year that everyone was making AI action figures of themselves. It'd be a lot cooler if you could make one and then buy it. How about that?
Well, Manuel, good night to you too. I don't have any burning desires. I'm just excited for Saturday.
Yeah.
Everyone
Is there
here
gonna
at
be,
the
is the team having a tailgate or a party?
I don't know if they're having a party, but I know there is a Nordeca tailgates in the Muni lot.
Okay.
Um,
I'm going to be checking that out. If you see me, anybody who listens or watches, say hello.
I'll be in the press box, so
Wave up to Jerald if you see him in the press box up there.
No, but it's been a good time. Everyone here at the Wisemen Say podcast would like to wish everyone a happy Easter.
Yes.
Yes, we know it's early, but hey, Easter's this Sunday, so we're getting it out there now. Happy Easter to all. Make sure all those little kids go Easter egg hunting and get all that damn candy.
And if you are so inclined and you like this sort of thing, WrestleMania is this weekend, Monday night or Saturday night and Sunday night in Las Vegas. So check that out. And if you follow me on Twitter and you want to chit chat about wrestling, I will for sure be locked in. So I'll be more than happy to participate in the discourse. And if you see anybody on there, because we did the Royal Rumble, I saw someone wearing a crew hat in the crowd in the background, screenshot it and send it to us as well. I always love that.
Well, it's been fun. It's been real. Thank you once again to all the fans that tune in and watch us each and every week. You guys are the real MVP. We do have a supporters link. You can find that in our link tree and also in our Spotify profile. You know, if you feel like donating, every penny that you donate goes back to the show for, travel, for away games, software, equipment, things of that nature. And if you don't donate, just by sharing our show each week,
please, yeah.
it's still huge. If you haven't yet, go ahead and go to YouTube, hit that like and subscribe, ring that bell. We are still 19 away from 100 followers on our YouTube channel. We are doing a giveaway for once we hit 100. So get all your friends, family, aunties, uncles.
One click.
Yeah. So you can always find us on Twitter at Wisemen Pod. I believe it's the same tag on Instagram. Mm-hmm. You can catch me on Twitter at Jerald_Lucas96. You can find Derik on Twitter
at FunkyMoses17.
Just stay tuned. Stay tuned for more, more crew news, more videos. You could catch some of the availabilities. You can also catch some of the post game on our page. Yeah. So, as tradition goes, Derik, Wisemen say,
only fools rush in.
Peace out, y'all. Hug your loved ones. Stay cool. Stay warm. Go crew.
Go crew.
Stay wise, y'all.